Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Billion Dollar Banker podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Perrone, and today we are so excited to have Roy Stillman, president of Stillman Development International, here with us. Roy, thanks for joining us.
Nicole, I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. You know, Roy and I ended up getting connected through Teresa Minnick, who is your sales associate there on site at the Atlantic Club, which is one of the newest oceanfront luxury condos out there in Long Branch, New Jersey. So if you haven't seen it, you definitely want to go check it out. But Roy is here today to tell us all about his background and what inspired him to start this amazing project. And we're excited to learn more.
I'm here and can't wait to talk.
So tell us about your early career and how you kind of got started down this path to where you are today.
Well, I come from a very hardworking family, and my grandfather, who was an immigrant, he once he got his footing in this country, he started in construction and real estate and some hotels. My father worked with him, and my brother and I, we worked with my father up until the point where I decided, hey, I think I want to sort of branch out on my own and try some things my own way. And I started my own company in the year 2000. But before that, it was a real estate family. Every family has a culture, and you go to somebody's dinner table and you might find that people are talking about baseball. You might talk about football at dinner. At my family, it was real estate.
I love that. We were just talking about your family and their development company is still rocking and your father's still working. And I think that speaks to exactly what we're talking about today, that your family's, it's in your DNA, I guess you could put it that way.
I started really at 5 years old on construction sites. Now, admittedly, I wasn't doing the most complex things, but I was running around with a little bag, picking up debris and a broom. And then when I got really good at that, I was hauling the trash out. And then when I got that done, I was maybe holding a ladder for a carpenter. And then I worked with an electrician and a plumber and a mason. And then I started doing my own work on construction sites. And then
I read that on your site that you were actually, did you do some physical labor out there on the development sites?
I ran a jackhammer personally for an entire summer. And I got to tell you, that is not so easy.
No, you're still shaking when you get home.
It's really tough. And I on a high-rise project, I've done every single job myself, from pushing the wheelbarrow to running the tower crane.
Wow.
And I learned a lot about, respect for workers. And, I learned that the folks I respect the most are the guys pushing the wheelbarrow, because they go home, they smell the worst after a long day, they earn the least. Nobody really, glorifies them. But they deserve it. They're really working hard.
They're the ones that, interestingly enough, I come from a background of construction workers myself. We didn't even speak about this, but union carpenters. So I know even to this day, to your point, they'll point and say, oh, I worked on the Javits Center, or wherever it was, because they were all in Manhattan. But it takes a team. It takes a lot of hard work and dedication from a lot of people.
People sometimes say, I did this, I did. Well, I understand, because it's a personal, it's a personal experience, working. But I don't care who you are or what you think of yourself. Nobody is smart enough or tough enough to do one of these by themselves. It's a team.
Yeah, that must make people feel really great to work for you and work on this site. And I'm curious to know, after you were 5 years old and you're on these sites with your family, tell us a little bit about your educational experience.
Well, after I got done with that part of things, I went to Cornell University to the School of Industrial and Labor Relations, and really learned some important things about the work environment and safety and unions and management and sociology and trying to inspire people. And after that, I went to law school at Duke University. And I got a law degree there, and also I got permission to go to the business school there, not as an enrolled student. I don't have an MBA from Duke, but I got to take every real estate class in the law school and in the business school. And it was really, in a way, kind of easy, because I knew I was never going to practice law. I was there.
I was going to ask you that. Were you going to go one way and then?
There was no chance I loved it. I thought it was just incredibly interesting to go to law school, but I didn't want to do it. And so I was there just to learn and to have the pleasure of learning without the pressure of saying, what's going to happen, you know, where's the job, and I knew what I was going to do all the way through, that I was going to be working in real estate. And so it was just the love of learning, and it took all that pressure and a lot of negativity away from things, and it was just a really joyful experience.
Yeah, and I'm sure it applies a lot to what you're doing today, any industry really, but specifically, you know, development. You know, there's a lot of legalities. So do you feel like it comes in handy a little bit having that background?
Every single day.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm sort of representing myself as a lawyer. Maybe I did more of that in the past, but it's this way of thinking, the way of analyzing things, picking apart issues. And I think it was really indispensable for at least the way I do things.
I love that. Yeah, I recall seeing that, and I was like, I have to ask him about if he was going to become good thing you didn't become an attorney, because we wouldn't have the Long Branch, the Atlantic Club right now project to be talking about. Before we get into the site, and I really want everyone to learn about this, because it's an absolutely beautiful condominium building, luxury, gorgeous, right on the ocean, probably one of the last parcels of land out there. But, you know, tell us about, other than your family, any early mentors that we can give a plug to here while you're sitting here with us today?
You know, I have this feeling that you find your teachers in the most unusual places that are just not obvious, and I try to think that anybody could be my teacher, from just somebody I pass on the street, or somebody I work with, or architects or designers, or, you know, everybody's got something to teach me. And I think, you know, the question is, are you open-minded enough to receive it? And so I try very hard to say that I'm prepared to learn from anybody who's got something that can help me. And every day you should be picking something up.
What a great perspective. I love that as well. It's a humble approach to life. And when you I think there's a saying, when you walk in a room, like never assume you're the smartest person in the room, because there's always something to learn from everybody there, right?
Well, quite the contrary. I always assume I'm the least intelligent person in the room, and it's okay if I disprove that.
That might be Teresa. We might have to double check on that. I don't know about that one with the background here.
But I say that you know, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should use them in that ratio.
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. You know what? Doing these interviews helps me with that quite a bit. So, you know, jumping into what we have you here for today, and it's been so exciting to learn about your background. Tell us what inspired you to develop the Atlantic Club.
Well, I have 2 amazing partners, Leon Silvera and Steve Silverman. And I know Leon for a long time, and I had the pleasure of meeting Steve on this project. And Leon and Steve were working on this site before I came to join. And they were originally planning it in maybe a different form, and it was going to be a rental, actually.
Oh, wow.
And they came to the conclusion that as Long Branch was changing, and it had gotten this critical mass of condominium and for sale projects, and had been getting more and more developed with more and more upscale projects. And as I said, having a critical mass, they said, you know, maybe this isn't really a rental. Let's think about this as a condominium. And after all, it is right smack on the beach. It's almost 4 acres of land at 400 or 450 feet of frontage on the ocean. And it's it's unique. If you were in the business another 10 years from today, you may never touch another one of these. Yeah. And so we all said together, I think it has the elements of being a condominium. And so they called me because it's my specialty. And so I came in to sort of lead that charge, and to make it into a condominium, and to lead the design of the project in a way that would, you know, make it worthy of that.
And we know, when you talk about the design, I know there's some really unique features. Can you tell us about the amenities that are available there?
The amenities are just such an important aspect of a modern project. You know, things evolved over time as to what might have been acceptable 20 years ago, 30 years, it's always changing. And it's not that you need to be even with the standard, you must be setting it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so in order to set the standard, you have to be able to look backwards to see what was. You have to be able to look at the present to say what is. And then you have to have an imagination and to dream and to say, what should be. So we went as students to other projects around the Monmouth County, particularly in Long Branch, and went there with no prejudgment. So we're going to go to this particular project, and I want to see how they solved the puzzle. What did they do? And then try and say, all right, I respect and really admire. I think you got this very, very well done. You got this right. And maybe if I were in charge, I would have done things differently. So the question is, do we feel that we can make a positive contribution and up the game, up the ante? And that was one of the key things, in fact, in deciding to do this project, was to say, there's good work out there, but we feel that the market needs us.
Right. And one of those things, as you're talking, that I see as more common in the redevelopment space is the hotel component of the luxury condo living, which I would love to hear your perspective on. Is that something that you think buyers are looking for? Is it something that you evaluated before?
Well, hotel could that makes me think of two different things. So one of them is the amenities, right? So instead of saying hotel, I'll say that we tried to create a country club, and
I
we
like that.
and we said, if you could have anything that you want, what would you have at home? And so we looked at the other projects and said, very nice amenity packages, but part of the future is better amenities, right? And more current things. And so we just loaded up the roster and said, we're going to have more amenities, better conceived than anybody's ever done. I'm going so far as to say on the East Coast. Yeah. And it's there are so many that it's very difficult to remember, but it's 75,000 square feet of great things. And the idea is that your home is your oasis, but you also, has certain needs, right? So first of all, we don't build apartments. We don't build units. We build homes.
I love that.
And for me, when I walk into my home, I want to know that I'm safe and that it's a place of refuge. And if you think of an amplifier, the amplifier could be set to 1 to 10. I like it at 4. Yeah. I want to know that when I'm home, my pulse goes down a little bit. But when I'm outside, I want some fun. I want to enjoy myself. I want my friends and family to come over and say, this is really a joy. So we've got our number one amenity, of course, is the ocean. It's the nature. It's the fresh air and the blue sky. And don't you love that sound when the waves are hitting the shore? Yeah, that's one of my favorite things when I go on holidays, to just open a window and listen.
And just listen.
Oh, it's just amazing.
That speaks a lot about the lifestyle that you have. I mean, he's making me want to move in here to the get out of the single family living and live in this kind of luxury world where you have all these amenities at your fingertips. I know a lot of what inspired the Atlantic Club. Your love for art is a big part of the design and the features. Can you tell us a little bit more about the art?
That's really my great joy in what I do, and that's why it's, I think my job is fun. It's and it's an old expression. It's not work if you love what you're doing. But throughout my life, I traveled and I tried to learn from places that I went, and I go to museums and I just try and let it rub off. Museums, it's the combination of colors and lines and form and scale, patina, authenticity. And if you go to enough and in enough different countries and cities and cultures, it creates this wholeness about you, and you have this rounded view of things. So the artists that we get to work with, they vary from project to project because every project has a different voice. Right. Sometimes I just like to go to the site or to a building and just stand there without judgment and just wait until we understand each other.
Interesting.
Until I understand its voice. And having done that here, I knew the voice. It was this aspect of relating to the environment, the shimmering light, the diaphanous colors and light relationships. And I knew instantly who the main artists needed to be. I'm fortunate to have a dear friend named Cristina Grajales, who is a very, very famous, world famous gallerist in Manhattan. And she specializes, or at least her original specialty was 1950s design. And that was a very, very key era of advancement in interior design and exterior design, principally out of Paris and other European countries or cities like Copenhagen. And Christina introduced me years ago to two artists who became darlings of the Chanel company. And one of those artists is Christophe Combe. He's a Parisian. And another one is Hechisu, Atelier Hechisu, and who is the most gifted textile artist I've ever come across in my life. I remember when Christina first showed me Jorge's textiles, I took a look at it and I shook my head and I said, this is a moment. I have just been exposed to somebody who will go down in history as one of the greats of this craft. And they're delightful people, and we get to interact together and design together. So the lobby of the Atlantic Club, it's patterned really, or it's inspired by the flagship Chanel in Paris. And what you see there is it's an era of design that is really not common. And for example, all surfaces are decorated. What I mean by that, it's not that you're just taking a can of paint and putting it on. There is no paint other than the ceiling. No paint. Right. Every surface is decorated with a textile, a fabric, a material, and the palette is the word is diaphanous. What is that experience when the sun is setting on the sea and you see the light glisten off and just gently reflect to you and how it affects the colors. And with the textiles and the glass, we've been able to accomplish that feeling. And the palette is this earth tone with light washing over it and with golds. And the stone is called Taj Mahal, which when light hits it just right, it has a slightly pink hue. The voice of this design is feminine. Sometimes that's one of the first decisions. I'm
like envisioning it as it's almost like you could see it, right? You've already seen this whole thing in your mind, because the way that you describe it, you could vision it.
Well, actually, that's I think of, you start a project at point A and you have to get to point Z before you're done. My job is to have been to point Z before I describe it to anybody else, because I need
You've been there.
I've been there. Now I just need to show you all the steps to get from point A to point Z and what they feel like and look like. And that's how you know that we're all going to get there together.
Now, who are the architects and designers, other than the curation of art? Who are the architects and designers on the project?
Well, we have frankly a brilliant firm here in Monmouth County. That's Short Point Architects.
Okay.
And they are really it's an excellent firm to work with. They're a no or a low ego group, and sometimes that's one of the biggest challenges of a project like this is managing egos.
Is that so that you can better coordinate with one another and collaborate on your ideas, and there's no overshadowing?
Well,
so
it's you have to. Everybody needs to be enfranchised as a key part of the project. Everybody needs to feel that they are an indispensable feature of the whole.
Right.
And that you being correct or incorrect takes nothing away from the other person's sense of accomplishment.
Understood.
Everybody is encouraged and not threatened.
Right.
Everybody is inspired and not turned off. And then you've really come a long way as a team leader in creating a force.
Well, I was going to ask you what are some of your strengths as a real estate developer, and I think I'm hearing many of them now about how you look at your staff and your team, how this is a we thing. Was there anything else that you'd add when you're thinking about people make a decision to live somewhere? I'm sure it has a lot to do with the people behind the project, the people who made it come to life. Is there anything that you would consider a particular strength of yours other than some of the things we're hearing already?
Two things come to mind. One of them, I have this expression, I call it the 1927 Yankees theory, which is, what would you do if you wanted to assemble a team that was designed to win.
Mm.
And what you do is you'd go to each position and find the greatest.
Right.
And then you would give them all of the elements to fulfill that destiny.
Right.
Their safety, their inspiration, their encouragement. So that's the concept of team building. And then in the field, there's two sort of extremes on how to talk to people. One is with criticism, and another one is with encouragement. And I find it so much more joyful in my life and effective as building a team spirit is to deal with people with encouragement. So I remember many times walking through a construction site, and a person is on a ladder installing light fixtures or doing some important task. I said, would you please come down off the ladder? Person would be getting ready to be dressed down. When you go home tonight, please tell your wife that she's married to an artist.
Wow. I thought he was about to get in trouble for a second. I'm like, uh-oh.
Please understand that I see you for who you are, and I respect your work.
Love that.
And sometimes people think like it's a joke, but no, it really
it's
is
who you are.
That's people go through life sometimes just invisible, and that's no fun, right?
No, it's not. It's to be seen and to be appreciated goes a long way.
I say to people, if you're doing a great job, I'm going to find you. If you're doing a bad job, I am going to find you.
Exactly. I love that. And, so now people kind of know the man behind the project. And so tell us about what's the status right now of the project?
Well, we've come a long way in the right direction. We have a fully completed design, which I'd like to tell you about in a little bit more.
Yeah.
But the permitting process in New Jersey, especially on the water, it's pretty rigorous.
Yeah.
And so we've got all that done. It takes a long time. There are city council, planning board meetings with the mayor, who incidentally is an incredible guy.
Oh, that always helps.
Big champion of the project, and only wants to do what's right for Long Branch. And we've been to Trenton, and we've been to all kinds of decision makers, and every time we had a vote, it was unanimous in favor of what we were doing, because we really wanted to create a situation where everyone's a winner.
Right.
You can have winners who are living in the building, and then there are winners who aren't living in the building, who just had their environment upgraded and their sense of aesthetic upgraded, and they can just walk past it and say, I don't know what's inside those 75,000 feet of amenities, but it doesn't matter. My life's enriched because this is nearby. Right.
The people that'll bring into the community, and just, walking by there and saying, wow, I remember when nothing was here. Now look how gorgeous this is. It's something to be proud of if you live in the town.
I really hope that the level of pride will be ever escalating. There were 2 buildings on this site when we put it under contract. And they were, sort of your generic, soulless, 1960 vintage buildings that, if you were being complimentary, you would say were neutral to the sense of beauty in the world. And maybe if you were a little more direct, you'd say they were maybe detracting from it. And we took them down. We removed any environmental threats that were associated. They had some asbestos in it, which we had to take out very carefully. Okay. And now where we are, we're excavating out all of the subsurface structures, the foundation systems, the pool, and various retaining walls and things like that. They go down pretty deep. And then the next step is we'll be removing some dirt, some sand. We had to be super careful there because one of the key things that you start with is a geotechnical engineer, which samples the underground conditions at different layers, at the surface, 10 feet down, 20, 30, 40 feet. What are you building on top of? Wow. Because you absolutely can't, you can't fail to understand what's going on there.
Oh yeah. And you were mentioning before in Long Branch, I guess the way that it's positioned, how high above sea level are you in that location?
I think
it goes down a little bit, right?
That's really one of the, actually, thanks for mentioning that, because that's one of the key reasons why I did want to do this project, because one of the things that's changing in our world is, and at an ever accelerating pace, is climate. And, it's really a pleasure to work on the ocean.
Oh,
but
yeah.
what happens a year or two later? What's going to be the level of the ocean? And, it's going up. You have these huge glaciers melting, and you have the world changing, and sea levels are going up, and you see these storms that are supposed to be once every 100 years, but the new 100 years is 10 years, and then the new 10 years is 5.
Right.
So I forget the number, but maybe it's 27 feet above mean high tide.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
And then we have a podium that where we have our parking, which is underground and comes up a bit. So by the time you get to your first level of a home, it's multiple tens and tens and tens of feet above that. So it's safe.
That's great. I would imagine that's something people are thinking of before they move to the ocean as well. Is this a good spot to be? And that answers some of the questions.
You really ought to be thinking about it, but
Right.
of course, sometimes you see these horrible things on the news. Whether people thought about it or they thought maybe it's never going to happen to me, but they're hanging on their roof as it's floating away, and these are just some of the saddest things you could ever see. But that's not going to be happening here. We designed this. I used to sit in front of the design team and said, "Look, we're on the ocean. Hurricanes come. I want this building designed to take a punch in the nose from Mother Nature, and I want it so that when nothing else could be around, we're going to be okay."
That's great.
And so that's how we did it.
When we think about the homeowners and real estate agents that are out there, can you tell us more about, I think it's 132 homes, I'll say, not units, inside of this building?
Right.
Okay. Is it one building? Are there two buildings that are?
It's one building.
Okay.
That you might think it's two because it has two wings to it, but it's going to be built as one homogeneous, unified building.
Okay.
And I'd like to mention to you, please, some of the sort of thoughts that went into its form.
Okay.
So out of 132 homes, our mission was to get as many people physically sighted, equipped from a location to be able to enjoy what they came here for, which is the ocean. And so out of 132 homes, 128 of them have either direct or other views of the ocean.
Wow.
Only 4 don't.
Wow.
And that was an amazing. And how do we do that? Well, one inspiration was in Florida was the Fontainebleau Hotel, and the geometry of the Fontainebleau. They had the exact same mission. You go to a hotel, you could have the oceanfront room, or you could have the room looking in the wrong direction. Which would you like?
Yeah.
So the geometry is a U with the legs of the U slightly open.
Okay.
And so that way, almost everybody, in this case 128 out of 132, can see the ocean.
Oh, that's great.
And then, one of the things that we saw when we were looking at the previous work here in Monmouth County was, oddly enough, that the relationship of a homeowner to the environment wasn't front and center to the design team. So we have perpendicular relationships from our oceanfront homes are staring straight at the ocean.
Wow.
And then what are you going to do if you live in such a home? Well, you probably want to be outside enjoying it. So we have these huge terraces and balconies that wrap around the entire building, and we produce them in depths so that they're totally usable. You can have your lounge chair pointing straight out. The oceanfront homes have terraces that are bigger than the interior of the home.
Wow. Yeah, I read that online, and I would love to hear when you're ready about the price point and the bedroom square footage. I think those are things I know a lot of people want to hear more about, but the outdoor living space is just such a key component. I'm sure when you took this all into consideration, that was a big part of the value proposition that you have here.
Our biggest asset is what nature gave us, right? That's why we came to this job.
Sure.
And so it was our design job was to create a seamless relationship between nature and the interior. So you have the outdoor space, you have the floor to ceiling windows, you have the geometry of the building. the great ceiling height.
Mm-hmm.
Our I believe our lowest is 9'6" finished clear with a drop ceiling, as opposed to a concrete ceiling, and they go up to 12 feet inside the homes. Sometimes you want to drop it in like a corridor or a bathroom. There are technical reasons why that's a good thing, and 9'6" would be too much. So we actually will voluntarily drop it.
Okay.
But then the color of the glass is also part of that relationship. It's seafoam green.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that it looks like it was born here.
Mm.
And
you see that same hue when you're outside looking in versus inside. Okay.
Right.
That's beautiful.
And so it's a great transition of, you don't want it to look like it just got plunked here by somebody who, went and bought something on sale.
Right.
It had to have been seafoam green. And I have to acknowledge a great Pritzker Prize architect named Richard Meyer. I live in Manhattan, and I live near two buildings that he did on West Side Highway and Perry Street.
Okay.
In the West Village. And his floor-to-ceiling windows are seafoam green, and the exterior is white. And so we selected the white in a nod to Richard Meyer. I wanted the building to have a youthfulness, an aspiration, a confident presence on the beach, and gleaming. So it's a gleaming white building with seafoam green that it sets back gracefully on the sand, so that it's not casting shadows on the beach,
right.
And it looks like it was created for the site. And the reason it looks like it was created for the site, because indeed it really was.
Yeah, it seems like it will blend in perfectly with Mother Nature, and I love that you took that into consideration. Tell us about the homes. How many bedrooms and bathrooms is the scale of units that you have available?
Well, we have no studios.
Okay.
And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 bedroom homes.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And we knew that there was going to be a demand for larger spaces. And one of the opportunities that we got was to take a good lesson in design from COVID. So when COVID hit, that really changed how people live, where they live, and how they work.
Absolutely.
So what we did was we said, the world just changed, and let's be smart enough to pay attention. And so I'm not sure if it's 100% or nearly 100% of our homes have home offices. And despite the fact we have a formal business center, but people love to, have an opportunity to work from home. Think of the efficiency. You don't have to commute to the office. You don't have to sit in traffic. You don't have to have that stress, and you can set your own hours so easily. So the home office, it also sort of can have double duty as another bedroom, but it would be a smaller one. And we put bathrooms always right near this home office, so that in case you wanted to have it as so a 1 bedroom could behave like a 2 bedroom.
You can kind of
a 2 bedroom can behave like a 3 bedroom.
Right.
But the home office is a really key feature of just saying that this really works for me. So our unit, the sizes of our homes are uncommonly large, which maybe defies a design trend where things are getting a little smaller. But I believe our smallest home is 985 square feet as a 1 bedroom, although it really could easily be called a 2 bedroom. And that's the home office and the sort of larger scale of the living environments. I don't like it when you come in and you feel like, yes, it's technically a room, but I feel like it doesn't really work for me. And then the relationship of one room to another. I have this sort of opinion about what makes a good layout versus not, and that is the number of times you have to turn your body to go from one place to another within the home.
Interesting.
The higher the number, the lesser the job you did. The lower the number, the better the job you did. So if you walk in the front door and say, okay, I'm going to go to the kitchen, count. How many times am I going to turn my body to get there? Or I'm going to go to my bedroom. How many times am I going to turn my body? And we went through dozens and dozens of iterations of the floor plans
Wow.
to get that right.
That's interesting. You don't even realize that how much thought goes into this. I think I heard recently that it was Elon Musk talking about casinos and how well they're curated, that they don't want you to turn at any corners. They want you just to keep going around. And maybe that has something to do with, just something like feeling like it's an exit, you're moving out, but there's really like this psychological experience that you have within your home or within any environment you're in. So just made me think about that. What are the price ranges? We got to know that. Where are we starting at? And I know you had a great sale recently. Can you tell us a little bit about both of those things?
Sure thing. Well, our entry is $1,250,000 to $1,300,000.
Okay.
And that's not counting any of the outdoor space, in terms of the number of square feet associated with the home.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go up. The two penthouses, which are already spoken for, were in the maybe a little bit bigger than 4,000 square feet, plus a several thousand square foot terrace. And
then you hit new records, and it was in Long Branch or Monmouth County.
I'm not sure if it was the state, but this is for a condominium.
Okay.
We set the record. I don't want to misspeak, so let's just call it Monmouth County because that's a smaller thing.
I think that's what I saw it say, but who knows? We'll see.
But we'll see. And we it's a great validation because, well, heck, the building isn't there yet, and somebody said, I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
I respect it.
Yeah.
I want it.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
And there's this concept of greed management, and you could say, well, if the building was built, it might have been worth twice as much. But okay, it doesn't really matter.
Very true.
This is really the purchaser wins. We're happy. Everybody's happy, and that's victory for everybody.
That's great. And it actually makes me think of, so your starting prices are 1.2 all the way up to, I think that was a little under $6 million.
That was 5.950.
5.950. And you were talking about obviously when the building goes up, it could be worth more. From an investment perspective, for someone you're thinking about spending 1.2 million on that single family home or that property that's already been constructed and standing there for the last 10 years, where do you think the bigger investment dollar goes into? Like, where do you see the translation? Because a lot of these buildings, they get built, the value goes up, right?
Well, I would think that I know for sure that we have a strategy of raising prices many times as we go forward.
Okay,
that's based upon absorption. That's based upon how what our goals are in terms of, do you want to be sold out at completion or do you want to be sold out just after? But we might raise prices 15 times during the process of it, and it's an encouragement for people to come in earlier, and they deserve a benefit because they were there first, right? And they had to be visionaries themselves to say, well, I'm not going to get this for 2 years, but this is what I want, and darn it, I'm going to do this.
I love that. I was actually just going to ask you that. Is that how long you're projecting till completion? 2 years?
It's 27 months until I think we're going to have certificates of occupancy for the homes, and then we have our punch lists and things like that after.
To close. Yes. Is there anything else you want to add about the amenities? I know you probably can't list them all. There's a lot, but are there some notable ones that you want to tell the viewers about that you feel like are really compelling?
Well, let me please mention it's technically an amenity, but I also want to sort of feather this into a trend. I think in design, which is sustainability, environmental consciousness, technology, and so we have. Out of our roughly 300 parking spaces inside the building, we have about 50 of them that are going to start off with electric charging capacity.
Okay. Oh, that's great.
And then nearly all of the balance of them will have the infrastructure installed to ultimately become electrified. So, the demand isn't there right this second for, a lot of people still have a combustion engine, and maybe some of them don't want to, but once there's a tipping point, which is where you can have the ease of charging, because, everybody's scared about, what happens when my battery runs out and I'm, like in Maine someplace. But here you can charge at home and on a really fast charge, and that's going to make a lot of people happy. That sort of falls under the rubric of, technology. And we have, it's it's a quote smart building. So we have power over Ethernet, which is what's running the lighting system inside the homes.
Okay.
And it's super customizable, so you can have settings programmed in, and the same system, which is a low voltage versus a high voltage system, can run thermostats and scenery and shades and remote access and a whole host of other of these. So it's a very, very cutting edge thing. Security also falls under that category of design achievements and anticipating what needs are going to be, and we had to strike a balance because we wanted everything to be super high tech, but also sometimes low tech, because you can have a religious Jewish clientele who on the Sabbath can't use these things, right? And you have to get into your home, so they need to get a physical key, and they also need to be able to go past these technology features using a physical key without touching something that's electric. So we had to think of all of these different kinds of needs and see if we could figure out in advance, how to satisfy everybody. The goal is perfection. You're never going to get there.
Sure.
But it's an aspiration.
No, you're doing really well. You're getting very close to it. It sounds like an amazing community. And is there anything about the exterior, the town, the community, other than the ocean, that you feel like is a big draw to Long Branch as opposed to other cities or locations?
I like very much this balance that we struck in our building. We have absolutely no commercial space in our building, nothing. And so what we are was sort of a free rider onto these huge, big, commercial areas. And I mean that like, restaurants and bars and carousel and, other kinds of things that people want to do. And it's only a 2-block walk away.
Right. That's perfect.
And so back to this concept of refuge and your pulse going down, we felt that if we loaded up with all this commercial space, then it would just be a little bit too loud and too frenetic. And so come home, you're safe, you're at peace. But sometimes you want the action, right? And so just get in your car and drive for 2 minutes or go walk for 5 minutes and you're there.
Such
so
a great location.
Long Branch is diverse, right? It's got a lot of different elements, and it's proximate to even more things and music and entertainment and bars and cafes and great restaurants. And so we, sorry to everybody else, but we kind of are the free rider. We latched on and didn't have to provide it, but everybody gets to have it just by going to somebody else's business. Yeah,
because you kind of get there's also that Tri-City feel where you have kind of the surrounding communities of Asbury Park and Red Bank. You're really centrally located there, plus the beach, and you have really a beach and city feel in many ways.
It's Manhattan by the beach in a way, because it's got this Manhattan sophistication of design. Yet it's got more amenities than you could possibly find in a Manhattan building.
And a quick commute to Manhattan. We were just talking about that.
It took me an hour and 10 minutes to get here today.
Yeah.
And so, you could take a ferry, you could have your own boat, and you're really in the center. This is a no apologies. It's like you didn't have to give up anything to be here. This is, Long Branch is a beautiful community.
It really is. What are you thinking about as far as in the years to come, or the legacy that you'd like to leave behind between the Atlantic Club as a whole and Stillman Development? Is there any kind of parting thoughts? And I also would love to let people know how they could reach out and get in touch, and if they are interested in a unit.
Sure, in a home.
In a home.
So, I would like hopefully I'll be on this earth for a long time, but at one point it won't be. And I'd like to be able to say that I left I left it to be a better place for having been here. I'd like to be able to say that in terms of beauty and integrity and our way of conducting ourselves, we made contributions to in a lot of areas. One of the greatest moments in my career was we had done a building in Manhattan, a tower with the late Pritzker Prize architect Philip Johnson. 10, 15 years later, I walked in. I didn't think anybody was going to remember me. I walked into the lobby. Somebody got up and said, "That there he is," and the people in the lobby got up and applauded.
Wow, how beautiful is that?
And that means a lot of tough decisions got made correctly.
Wow, that's an amazing feeling. So for our viewers and Roy, it's been so interesting getting to know you. I'm so happy that you came and joined us.
It's
and
a privilege.
I'm excited to get this message out to a broader audience. How do we get in touch with your team? Tell us just quickly about your real estate team there. Who would we get in touch with? How do we reach them?
Sure. As we're sort of getting ready to wrap up, I just want to circle back one more time to my partners. I want to say these are amazing people that I'm with. Mm-hmm. I've had it the other way in previous partnerships, and I want to tell you something I learned. No good can ever occur when you're with bad. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, when you're with good, a lot of great can happen. And so I've got Leon Silvera and Steve Silverman, two people that I'm very, very fortunate to be with. In terms of you acquiring your next home, please contact Teresa Minnick. Teresa is an absolute unqualified expert in her field. I knew it the minute I saw her.
I call her the queen of new construction out here in Long Branch and beyond.
She was born to it.
Yeah.
I knew it the minute I saw her. She's right out of the book as to what a great on-site sales broker is supposed to be. We have a beautiful relationship together. We speak almost every day. I love speaking to her, and I really admire her work.
That's great. And we'll make sure that we have all of her contact information here. If you guys have any questions, if you're interested in, I guess you have a sales site down there.
We have a sales center, and we have a sales partnership with Christie's, and they're displaying us proudly all over the world on front cover of their books and magazines and periodicals, and it became an international project, but boots on the ground. Yeah. It's Teresa. She's our expert.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she's the person to contact through Christie's.
Well, that's great. I can't wait to see. We're going to make sure we put tons of videos, and as you're describing this beautiful project, the viewers will be able to see it as you're explaining it, which I think is going to be really nice. And we're so happy that we had you here today, and our viewers know how to reach out if you're interested in learning more about the Atlantic Club. Absolutely excited to see how it turns out.
I want to tell you that it's been a privilege to sit and talk with you. You're very easy to talk to, and had a lot of fun.
Same here, Roy. Thanks so much. Thank you, everybody.